The soft hum of the research vessel Starseeker filled the quiet observation deck as Dale stood before the massive window, his 4 eyes fixed on the distant stars. His slim fingers tapped nervously on the datapad he held. After 15 years of studying ancient texts and legends, he had found something that made his heart race with excitement and fear. The door behind him slid open with a gentle hiss. "Chief Researcher, the Council is ready for your report," his assistant called out. Dale's scaled skin shifted from its normal blue to a lighter shade, a sign of anxiety among his species. "Thank you," he said, turning away from the window. He had practiced this presentation countless times, but explaining to the Galactic Science Council that one of their core beliefs might be wrong was not going to be easy. The conference room was already full when Dale entered. 12 holographic figures sat around the table, each representing different species from across the galaxy. Some he recognized instantly. The crystalline form of the Quantum Archives Director, the gaseous cloud that was the head of historical research, and the mechanical body of the Technology Assessment Chief. "Chief Researcher Dale," the council head spoke, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with formal patterns. "You called this emergency meeting. Please proceed." Dale connected his data pad to the room's projection system. Ancient text appeared in the air above the table, slowly rotating for all to see. "Honorable Council, for decades we've dismissed the human legends of the World Breaker as primitive propaganda. We believed it was simply their way of trying to seem more powerful than they were during their early space age." He paused, letting the familiar text sink in. "However," he continued, bringing up new data, "I've discovered something in the deep archives of the predecessor races." The projection changed to show energy readings and mathematical formulas. "These readings match exactly with what our long-range sensors detected coming from the human solar system 3 days ago." Murmurs filled the room. The Technology Assessment Chief's mechanical eyes whirred as they focused. "Impossible. The humans are a level 3 civilization at best. They barely have fusion power." Dale nodded. "That's what we've always believed. But look at this." He overlaid the ancient readings with the current ones. They aligned perfectly. "The legends speak of a power that could reshape reality itself. We thought it was fiction, but these energy signatures suggest otherwise." "Are you suggesting," the Quantum Archives Director's crystal form sparkled with doubt, "that the humans have had this capability all along?" "Not exactly," Dale replied, bringing up more historical data. "The legends never specifically said it was a weapon. We assumed that because of how our translators interpreted the ancient texts. But I've been studying human languages, their patterns of communication. They often hide deeper meanings in their stories." The council head's patterns shifted to show concern. "Explain." "The humans write about the World Breaker in their earliest space records, but the way they describe it." Dale pulled up multiple text fragments. "They never say they created it. They talk about it like it's a natural part of who they are, something that emerges when needed." The historical research chief's gaseous form swirled faster, a sign of agitation. "This is absurd. We've monitored their development for centuries. They show no signs of such advancement." "Unless they're hiding it," Dale countered. "Think about their history. Every time they faced a superior force, they found unexpected ways to prevail. Their military history is full of examples where they succeeded against impossible odds." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The council head's patterns now showed deep concern. "What are you suggesting we do?" Dale took a deep breath. "I believe we need to send an investigation fleet. If the humans have somehow accessed this power, we need to know. The energy readings are growing stronger every day." "An investigation fleet?" The Technology Assessment Chief's mechanical voice carried a note of warning. "That could be seen as an act of aggression. Better than ignoring it and risking the consequences," Dale argued. "The predecessor records are clear. The last time these energy readings appeared, an entire sector of space was altered at the quantum level. Whatever this power is, we can't pretend it doesn't exist anymore." The council members exchanged looks. After a moment, The council head's patterns shifted to show resolution. We will send the fleet, but it must be handled diplomatically. We cannot risk provoking them if what you suggest is true. Dale felt relief wash over him, his scales returning to their normal blue. But as he gathered his data pad to leave, a new energy reading appeared on his screen. His heart nearly stopped. "Council," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "The readings, they've just doubled in intensity." The council head's patterns flashed with alarm. "How long until the fleet can reach Earth?" 3 standard days at maximum speed, the technology assessment chief answered. "Make it 2, the council head ordered. "Whatever is happening in the human solar system, we need to contain it." Dismissed. As the holograms winked out one by one, Dale stayed behind, staring at the readings on his screen. Something wasn't adding up. The humans he'd studied were clever and resourceful, yes, but this level of power was beyond anything they should be capable of. Unless... He quickly pulled up the original legends again, reading them with fresh eyes. The humans had never claimed the World Breaker was a weapon. In fact, they'd written about it with a mix of pride and fear, like they both celebrated and dreaded its existence. Dale's fingers flew over his data pad, cross-referencing historical events. Every major crisis in human history, every moment when they faced extinction, there were always stories of impossible victories, of solutions no one could have predicted. A chill ran through him as a new thought formed. What if the World Breaker wasn't a weapon at all? What if it was something else entirely? Something about humanity itself. He needed to get this information to the fleet. But as he reached for the communication panel, all 4 of his eyes widened in shock. The energy readings had just tripled. Whatever was happening in the human solar system, they had less time than they thought. Much less. Dale looked out the window at the distant stars, wondering if they were about to witness the return of something that had passed into legend. And for the first time in his life, he hoped the legends were wrong. Commander Tom stood at the window of Earth's orbital defense station, watching the morning sun rise over the blue planet below. The coffee in his mug had gone cold, forgotten as he studied the latest sensor readings. Something was wrong with the numbers, but he couldn't figure out what. "Commander," his second-in-command James called from the monitoring station. "We're picking up multiple objects entering the solar system. They just appeared past Neptune's orbit." Tom set down his mug and walked to the main display. The screen showed dozens of ships moving in perfect formation. Their energy signatures didn't match anything in Earth's database. "How many?" Tom asked, keeping his voice steady despite the growing knot in his stomach. 57 vessels, sir. All bigger than anything we have. And they're moving fast." Tom pressed the comm button on the console. "This is Commander Tom. All stations go to alert status. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Red lights began flashing throughout the station as klaxons sounded. Within minutes, the command center was fully staffed, each officer at their post, waiting. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. They're broadcasting on all frequencies." Tom straightened his uniform. "Put it through." A hologram appeared in the center of the command center. The alien was tall and scaled, with 4 eyes and blue skin. "I am Admiral Rex of the Galactic Confederation Fleet. We detect dangerous energy readings from your system. You will allow us to inspect your military installations immediately." Tom felt every eye in the room on him. Earth had never made official contact with alien life before, and now their first meeting was starting with accusations. "This is Commander Tom of the Earth Defense Force. We weren't aware of any dangerous energy readings. Perhaps we could discuss this diplomatically." The alien admiral's scales shifted color slightly. "Our sensors don't lie, Commander. Our scientists have detected power signatures matching ancient weapons of mass destruction. Weapons that could threaten the entire galaxy." "With all due respect, Admiral," Tom replied, "we don't have any such weapons. We'd be happy to prove that through peaceful inspection, but your fleet's current approach seems more like an invasion force." You deny developing the world breaker technology. Tom frowned. He'd never heard of any world breaker. He glanced at James, who shook his head. He hadn't either. Admiral, I can assure you we're not developing any galaxy-threatening weapons. We're still working on reliable fusion power for our colonies. The alien's expression was unreadable, but his tone grew harder. You expect us to believe these energy readings appeared by coincidence, that the power signatures matching the ancient texts are natural. Before Tom could respond, James called out, "Sir, energy spike detected. It's massive, coming from everywhere." The main screen lit up with warnings. Every sensor on the station was registering unprecedented power levels, but they couldn't pinpoint the source. "You see," Admiral Rex's hologram flickered. "You activate your weapon even as we speak." "This isn't us," Tom insisted, watching in shock as the readings continued to climb. "Whatever this is, we're detecting it too, and we're just as surprised as you are." The alien fleet had stopped advancing, holding position just past Mars orbit. "You have 1 hour to surrender control of your military installations," Admiral Rex declared. "If you refuse, we will be forced to take action to protect the galaxy from this threat." The hologram vanished, leaving the command center in tense silence. "Options?" Tom asked, looking around the room. James pulled up the tactical display. "Our orbital defense network is good, sir, but against 57 ships of that size, we'd need a miracle." "Get me Earth Command," Tom ordered. "And someone find out what these energy readings are. If it's not us causing them, we need to know what is." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Earth's other defense stations reported similar readings, massive energy spikes that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The scientists were baffled, the military was preparing for the worst, and the civilian population was still unaware that humanity's first contact with alien life was about to turn into a war. "Sir," James called out with 10 minutes left on the ultimatum. "The readings, they're changing." Tom looked at the display and felt his blood run cold. The energy signatures were starting to form a pattern, and that pattern was growing. Something was coming. "Get me the alien fleet," he ordered. Admiral Rex's hologram appeared again. "Have you come to your senses, Commander?" "Admiral, look at the energy pattern. It's not centered on Earth. It's moving, forming something. This isn't a weapon. It's more like something's arriving." The alien's scales shifted to a paler shade. "Impossible." The calculations clearly showed. "Sir," James interrupted. "Object detected." Massive object just appeared at the edge of the solar system. The main screen showed it, a shape so large it defied comprehension. It was bigger than Earth, bigger than Jupiter, and it was moving toward them. Admiral Rex's hologram showed him talking to someone off-screen, his movements sharp with alarm. When he turned back, his voice had lost its commanding tone. "Commander," he said, "we may have made a terrible mistake. The energy readings, they weren't from a weapon at all. They were from that." "What is it?" Tom asked, watching as the massive object slowly moved closer, its surface seeming to shift and change like living tissue. "Something from our oldest records," Rex replied. "Something that all spacefaring races fear. We thought the stories were myths, but—" He paused, his scales now almost white. "Commander, I suggest we postpone our disagreement. If that is what I think it is, we're all in danger." Tom looked at the tactical display, then at his crew, then back at the alien admiral. "Agreed. Whatever that thing is, it's a threat to all of us. I suggest we start talking about how to face it together." As if in response to his words, the massive object suddenly accelerated, heading straight for the gathered ships of both species. The legend they had feared wasn't a human weapon after all, it was something far worse. And now humanity's first contact with alien life would have to become humanity's first alliance, if any of them were going to survive what came next. The massive creature moved through space with impossible grace for its size. On the main screen of Earth's defense station, it looked like a living planet, its surface rippling with patterns that hurt the eyes to watch. Both human and alien crews stared in horror as it drew closer, now passing Jupiter's orbit. "What exactly are we dealing with, Admiral?" Tom asked, looking at Rex's hologram. The alien commander's scales had not returned to their normal color. "The ancient texts call it the Devourer," Rex replied. "It's appeared only 3 times in recorded history. Each time, it consumed everything in its path: planets, stars, entire solar systems. None of the civilizations it encountered survived." James pulled up new sensor readings. "Sir, it's accelerating again. At current speed, it will reach Mars in 6 hours." Tom turned to the alien admiral. "Admiral Rex, I know we got off on the wrong foot, but right now, your fleet and our defense stations are the only things standing between that creature and Earth. We need to work together." The alien commander was silent for a moment, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "Agreed. But Commander, you should know. Our weapons may not be enough. The record suggests the Devourer adapts to whatever attacks it faces." "Sir," one of the human officers called out, "Chief Researcher Dale is requesting to join the conference. He says it's urgent." The blue-scaled alien scientist appeared as a second hologram, holding a datapad. "Commander, Admiral, I finished analyzing the ancient records. The Devourer isn't just a creature. It's a living weapon created by a long-dead race. It was designed to evolve past any defense it encounters." "How did the ancient civilizations fight it?" Tom asked. "They didn't," Dale replied. "They tried to run to hide. Some attempted to destroy entire sectors of space to stop it. Nothing worked." The command center fell silent. On the main screen, the creature's massive form continued its approach, now clearly visible even without magnification. "There has to be a way," Tom said, looking at his crew. "Everything has a weakness. We just need to find it." Rex's scales shifted slightly, showing surprise. "Commander, did you not hear? This entity has destroyed civilizations far more advanced than either of ours." "Yes, but they fought alone," Tom replied. He turned to Dale. "Chief Researcher, you said it adapts to whatever attacks it faces. What if we hit it with everything at once? Different types of weapons, different technologies." Dale's eyes widened. That could work. The Devourer adapts quickly, but it can only adapt to one type of attack at a time. If we could coordinate multiple different attacks, it would have to choose which adaptation to make," Rex finished, his scales showing interest. "But Commander, even with our combined forces, we don't have enough different weapon types to overwhelm its adaptation ability." Tom smiled. "Actually, we might. James, show them what we've been hiding." James pressed several buttons, and new schematics appeared on the screen. The alien holograms stared in surprise. "Impossible," Rex said. "These weapon designs, they're completely different from anything we've seen. How did you develop these without us detecting them?" "We didn't develop them to hide them," Tom explained. "We developed them because we think differently. Your civilizations focused on energy weapons and quantum distortion. We looked at what we had: kinetic weapons, chemical reactions, even biological agents. We made them work in space because we had to. We didn't have your advanced technology, so we got creative." Dale was studying the schematics with all 4 eyes. This could work. The Devourer has never encountered such primitive yet innovative weapons, combined with our advanced technology. "We hit it with everything," Tom said. "Energy weapons, kinetic strikes, biological agents, quantum disruption, everything we have. All at once, from all sides. It won't be able to adapt to everything simultaneously." Rex's scales had finally returned to their normal color. "It's bold, possibly suicidal. But," he looked at the approaching monster, "we don't have many options left." 4 hours until it reaches Mars," James reported. Tom straightened. "Admiral, If we're going to do this, we need to start coordinating now. Our weapons are different. Our tactics are different. Even our communication systems are different. We need to figure out how to work together. Fast. Agreed, Rex said. I'm sending coordination codes now. We'll need to position our ships carefully. The timing must be perfect. As the command center burst into activity, Dale spoke up again. Commander, Admiral, there's something else in the ancient records. A warning. The Devourer, it's intelligent. It doesn't just adapt physically. It learns. It thinks. Whatever plan we make, we need a backup. And a backup for the backup. Tom nodded. Noted. James, get me Earth Command. We need every weapons platform, every ship, every station ready. He turned back to the alien admiral. Admiral Rex, I promise you this. Whether we win or lose, the Devourer is about to face something it's never seen before. Humans and aliens working together, combining the best of both our species. The massive creature filled the main screen now, its surface patterns becoming clearer. They looked almost like faces, screaming in eternal agony, perhaps the remnants of civilizations it had consumed. But as both human and alien crews prepared for battle, there was no more fear in the command center, only determination. The legend they had feared wasn't a human weapon. But perhaps, Tom thought, looking at his crew working alongside alien tactical officers, through holographic interfaces, they were about to create a new legend. One about the day humanity and its former enemies stood together against a horror from the ancient past. They had 3 hours to prepare, 3 hours to combine technologies that were never meant to work together, 3 hours to teach 2 different species to fight as one. The Devourer had destroyed every civilization it had ever encountered, but it had never encountered anything like this. Time moved too fast and too slow at once as the combined fleet prepared for battle. The space around Mars had become a strange sight. Alien ships and human defense platforms moving in perfect formation, their crews working together as if they'd trained for years instead of hours. Fleet Admiral Jack arrived from Earth just as the last weapons were being synchronized. His weathered face showed no surprise at seeing aliens working alongside his people on the defense station's command deck. Commander Tom, he said, looking at the tactical display. I hear we're about to make history, one way or another. Yes, sir, Tom replied, then introduced him to the alien commander's hologram. This is Admiral Rex of the Confederation Fleet. He's agreed to coordinate his ships with ours. Jack nodded at the alien. Admiral, I hear we have less than an hour before our guest arrives. 47 minutes, Rex confirmed, his scales shifting with nervous energy. We've positioned our ships according to your tactical officer Kate's plan. I must admit, it's unlike anything our strategists would have developed. Kate stood at her station, her dark hair pulled back tight, eyes focused on her displays. She had spent the last 2 hours teaching alien crews about Earth's combat tactics while learning about their technology. The plan is simple, she said. We just have to execute it perfectly, or we all die. The Devourer was clearly visible now, its massive form blocking out the stars behind it. Its surface patterns had become more aggressive, swirling faster as it approached. All ships report ready, James announced. Weapon systems synchronized. Let's go over it one more time, Jack said, looking at Kate. She nodded, pulling up the battle plan. The Devourer adapts to attacks, but it can only adapt to one type at a time. We're hitting it with 5 different types of attacks simultaneously. Confederation energy weapons from their capital ships, our kinetic strike platforms, biological weapons from Earth's defense stations, quantum disruption from their support vessels, and something special from our science division. The last part is what worries me, Rex's hologram said. You still haven't told us what this special weapon is. Kate allowed herself a small smile. That's because it's not really a weapon. While you were preparing your ships, our scientists were studying the sensor data. The Devourer's surface isn't just for show. It's how it processes information and adapts. Those patterns are like a giant neural network. 20 minutes to contact. James reported. "Time to get to our ships," Jack said. "Commander Tom, you'll coordinate from here. Kate, you're with me on the flagship, Admiral Rex." He paused, looking at the alien commander. "It's been an honor preparing for battle with you. Let's hope we live to do it again." The next 15 minutes were a blur of activity. Ships moved into final position, weapons were charged, and crews made their peace with whatever gods they believed in. The Devourer had slowed its approach, seeming to study the assembled fleet. "Energy spike," James called out. "It's scanning us." "All ships hold position," Tom ordered. "Wait for it to commit." The creature's surface patterns suddenly shifted, forming what looked like thousands of mouths. From each one, a beam of pure darkness shot out, heading for different ships in the fleet. "Now," Tom shouted. The space around Mars erupted in chaos. Confederation ships fired brilliant beams of energy that would have cut planets in half. Earth's platforms launched salvos of kinetic weapons. Tungsten rods accelerated to near-light speed. Defense stations released clouds of engineered bacteria designed to eat through any known material. Alien support ships activated quantum disruptors that warped the very fabric of space. The Devourer's surface rippled as it tried to adapt, but there were too many different attacks. Where it hardened against energy weapons, kinetic strikes tore through it. Where it created quantum shields, the biological weapons slipped through. Where it tried to destroy the bacteria, energy beams found their mark. "It's working," James shouted. "We're causing damage." But then the creature did something unexpected. Instead of trying to adapt, it split into smaller pieces, each one the size of a small moon. The pieces began moving independently, each adapting to a different type of attack. "All ships fall back," Tom ordered. "It's trying to divide our fire." "No," Kate's voice came over the comm. "This is what we wanted. James, activate the signal." From Earth's defense stations, a new type of wave emerged, not a weapon, but a complex pattern of energy pulses. The same pattern that they had observed on the Devourer's surface, but modified, changed. "What are you doing?" Rex demanded. "Its neural network is adaptive," Kate explained. "So we're giving it too much to process. The pattern we're sending, it's a paradox, a mathematical problem that has no solution. The more it tries to solve it, the more complex it becomes." The pieces of the Devourer stopped moving. Their surfaces began swirling faster and faster as they tried to process the signal. Some started to recombine, others began to break apart further. "Keep up the attack," Jack ordered. "All weapons, concentrated fire on any piece that looks like it's figuring out the pattern." The battle raged for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. The Devourer's pieces spun and twisted, caught between trying to solve the unsolvable pattern and defending against the physical attacks. And then something remarkable happened. The pieces that had split off began to move erratically. Their surface patterns became chaotic, uncoordinated. Some started attacking each other. "It's working." Kate's voice was triumphant. "The neural network is overloading. Each piece is trying to solve the pattern differently." "All ships," Tom ordered, "focus fire on the largest remaining piece. Everything you have." The combined fleet turned its full fury on the main body of the Devourer. Energy weapons, kinetic strikes, biological agents, and quantum disruption all hit at once. Unable to adapt, unable to process the paradox being fed into its neural network, the creature's surface began to break apart. But victory wasn't certain yet. As its body disintegrated, the Devourer seemed to gather itself for one final attack. Its surface stabilized for a moment, all the patterns aligning. "Brace for impact," Tom shouted. "All ships, evasive action." The creature released a wave of energy, unlike anything they had ever seen. Where it touched ships, reality itself seemed to bend. But in committing to this final attack, it had stopped trying to solve the paradox. Its neural network, already strained to breaking point, finally collapsed. The Devourer, the terror of ancient civilizations, began to tear itself apart. The final battle against the Devourer left everyone watching in awe. As the creature tore itself apart, cascading waves of energy rippled out in all directions. The combined fleet scrambled to move away from the blast zone, but not all ships made it in time. Hull breach on decks 3 through 7. A crew member shouted on the human flagship. Admiral Jack held onto his command chair as the ship shuddered. "Get damage control teams down there," he ordered. "Kate, what's happening to that thing?" Kate's eyes were fixed on her display, tracking the death throes of the ancient horror. "It's collapsing in on itself." The paradox signal disrupted its neural network, and now the separate pieces are fighting each other, unable to reintegrate properly. On the defense station, Commander Tom watched as pieces of the Devourer turned on each other, consuming one another in a desperate attempt to regain stability. "Admiral Rex, your ships in Sector 4 need to pull back further. The energy readings are off the charts." The alien admiral's hologram flickered as his own ship rocked from the shockwaves. "Confirmed. All Confederation vessels, increase distance to minimum safe range." The creature's death wasn't quick or clean. For nearly an hour, they watched as it devoured itself, shrinking smaller and smaller until it was merely the size of Earth's moon. But even as it diminished, its power remained terrifying. "Sir," James called out from his station on the defense platform, "I'm detecting a buildup of energy at the creature's core." "If those readings are accurate," his voice trailed off. "Spit it out," Tom said. "If it continues, the resulting explosion could take out half the solar system." The command center fell silent. They had defeated the Devourer, but at what cost? If it destroyed their solar system in its death, their victory would be meaningless. "There has to be a way to contain it," Kate's voice came over the comm system. "The energy is building because the creature's outer layers are pressing in on its core. If we could relieve that pressure—" "No," Chief Researcher Dale interrupted, his 4 eyes wide with understanding. "If we disrupt the collapse now, it might stabilize and regenerate. We need to control the blast, not prevent it." "And how exactly do we control an explosion that big?" Jack asked. A new voice joined the conversation. "We create a path of least resistance." Tom looked up to see a human woman he didn't recognize on screen. "Who is this?" "Dr. Lee, head of Earth's Quantum Physics Division," she replied. "We've been monitoring the situation. The Devourer's core is building pressure because it has nowhere to go. But space isn't uniform. It has weaknesses, natural folds where dimensions meet." "You're talking about creating a controlled rupture," Dale said, his scales shifting with excitement. "Direct the explosion away from the solar system through a weak point in space-time." "Exactly," Dr. Lee nodded. "But we'll need precise calculations and perfect timing." Admiral Rex's scales changed color as he considered this. "This is beyond dangerous. If we miscalculate, we could tear a permanent hole in reality. And if we do nothing, half our solar system dies," Tom countered. "I say we try it." The next 30 minutes were a blur of activity. Human scientists worked alongside alien researchers, combining their understanding of physics in ways neither had considered before. The remaining ships positioned themselves strategically around the shrinking Devourer, preparing to create a directed energy field that would guide the coming explosion. "Energy levels approaching critical," James reported. 10 minutes until detonation. On the flagship, Kate finalized the calculations with Dale's help. "The weak point is located between Mars and the asteroid belt. If we concentrate our efforts there, we can create a channel for the energy to follow." "All ships in position," Admiral Rex confirmed. Energy projectors aligned and synchronized. "This is Admiral Jack to all vessels. Begin sequence on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." Every ship in station activated their energy projectors simultaneously. The beams converged at a single point in space, creating a visible distortion. The fabric of reality seemed to stretch and thin, forming a tunnel-like structure pointing away from the solar system. The Devourer is responding to the field, Kate exclaimed. Its energy is being drawn toward the weak point. The creature's remains, now compressed to a dense core, began to pulse with blinding light. Tendrils of energy reached out, following the path created by the combined fleet. 5 minutes to critical mass, James announced, his voice tense. Tom looked at the tactical display, noting several ships whose positions had shifted. Some of those ships are too close to the rupture point. They need to pull back. They can't, Rex replied grimly. Their engines are damaged. They're maintaining position to keep the energy corridor stable. They'll be destroyed when it blows. They know, Rex said simply. Both human and Confederation crews. They volunteered. Tom felt a swell of pride mixed with sorrow. In just a few hours, former enemies had become allies willing to sacrifice themselves for each other. 2 minutes, James called out. The Devourer's core had become a pinpoint of light, so intense that the screens had to filter it to prevent blinding the crews. The energy corridor wavered but held steady, pointing away from Earth and the inner planets. 1 minute. All remaining ships, maximum shields, Jack ordered. Brace for impact. In its final moments, the Devourer seemed to understand what was happening. Its energy lashed out, trying to break free of the corridor. But the combined efforts of humans and aliens held firm, channeling its death throes toward the weak point in space. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The explosion, when it came, was both more and less than they expected. Instead of an outward blast, the Devourer imploded, collapsing to an infinitesimal point before releasing its energy as a focused beam that shot through the corridor they had created. The beam struck the weak point, tearing open a temporary hole in spacetime. The shockwave that followed rocked every ship, but the worst of the explosion's force had been directed away from the solar system, disappearing into the void beyond. Damage reports. Tom called out when the initial blast subsided. "We lost 12 ships, sir," James replied solemnly. 7 human, 5 Confederation. But the energy corridor held. Most of the blast was channeled through the rupture. "The rupture itself is closing," Dale reported, his scales a deep blue of relief. "No permanent damage to spacetime." A tired cheer went up across the fleet as the news spread. They had done it. Earth, Mars, and the rest of the solar system were safe. The ancient horror was gone. Hours later, as recovery operations began, Admiral Jack met with Admiral Rex on the defense station. Tom and Kate joined them, along with Dale and other key personnel who had helped coordinate the defense. "The legend of the World Breaker," Dale said, looking at the assembled humans. "I think I understand it now. It wasn't about a weapon you possessed." "No," Kate agreed. "It was about what happens when humanity is pushed to its limits. How we can adapt, how we can come up with solutions no one else would think of." "Your species thinks differently," Rex acknowledged. "When our ancestors encountered similar threats, they tried to outmatch them with superior technology. You looked for weaknesses, for clever solutions." "We had to," Jack said simply. "We've always been the underdogs in our own history. Smaller tribes against larger ones, weaker nations against stronger ones. We learned to use our minds when our muscles weren't enough." Rex's scales shifted to a color they hadn't seen before. "The Confederation has always viewed humanity with suspicion. We thought your unpredictability made you dangerous. Now I see it makes you valuable allies." "So what happens now?" Tom asked. "Now," Rex said, "we build something new. Together." As the humans and aliens looked out at the stars, they knew the legend had changed. The World Breaker wasn't a weapon of destruction. It was humanity's ability to break through conventional thinking when faced with impossible odds. And now that ability had saved not just Earth, but the representatives of a galactic civilization that had once feared them. A new legend was beginning, and this one promised a better future for all.